Good morning. Welcome. I'm so excited today. I am going to finally have one of my favorite conversations with our guest today, is Shel Horowitz, and he's going to be joining us right here. You can see him. He's right there. Welcome to the show. I just want to tell everybody, you're on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. My name is Vicki Helm. This is the Coffee Break Show, and it is brought to you by Metadime Digital Network. And I just want to say welcome if you're on iHeartRadio, if you're on iTunes, if you're on Spotify, wherever you are, thank you for joining us. And those people who are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, welcome. I'm so glad you're here to join us. If you'd like to participate in today's conversation, please join us on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel, and you can go ahead and pop your questions. Hello, you guys. We are going to rock your world. I'm thank you for being here. Thank you. And I think that's Anna. Welcome aboard. Hi, thank you everybody for jumping on. We see you jumping on. Good morning. Nice to see you guys here. Good morning. So I just want to begin by saying, I want to tell you about Shel. This guy is amazing. He's an award-winning, best-selling author. He has 9 previous books. He is, he's a long-running bestseller too. He's in the guerrilla marketing business area of books, but he does talking about guerrilla marketing, going green. Today, we are going to be talking about socially conscious business. I'm so passionate about this, and going greener. We're going to be talking about something that is so deep to my heart, about business that is of the future. I just want to welcome you to the show today, Shel. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Vicki. And actually, the most recent book is called Guerrilla Marketing to Heal the World.
Ooh, nice.
Which is the successor book to Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green. It's 6 years newer. And has
put that in our thing so everybody can click on it and get a copy. No, I'm going to have Karen do that. Karen, will you find that? Karen, find it and put it in the, thank you, my loves. And then we'll have that there, because those guerrilla books are just awesome. And this is so important. So congratulations on your book, though.
Thank you.
So, Shel, this is one of the most important topics, I think, in the world today. I think it's one of the most important topics. And I want to ask you, how did you get started in this? How did you get started in this industry? What did you notice that shifted your entrepreneurship, that you said, it's got to be this or we're going to, fall? Tell us the story of that.
Okay. It was a long, slow evolution, but I think I'll skip the really early stuff and cut to 2000, when in November 1999, if I'll show people where I live, you can see that mountain out behind the farm.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. That's a state park called Skinner State Park, or Mount Holyoke. And about a year after I moved to this neighborhood, a developer said that the hill next to that one was a place that he was going to put 40 McMansions that would be visible from the top of that state park.
Wow.
And while everybody was saying, oh, this is terrible, there's nothing we can do, I went and founded a movement called Save the Mountain. And all the experts said, well, there was nothing we can do. We went out and saved that mountain in 13 months flat.
Wow.
So, yeah, I thought it would take 5 years. I always had confidence that we would do it, but I was very shocked and pleased at the time frame that it was so quick. Mm-hmm. So after the success of that campaign, I've been both a marketer and an activist since my teens in the 1970s.
Of course.
I started thinking, well, here I have just done an activist campaign that used everything I knew about marketing. Wow. And we won when nobody said we could. What lessons from the activism side can I bring into the marketing side? Mm-hmm. How can I braid those two things together? And then while I was kind of mulling that over, we started getting a run of business scandals around 2001, 2002, Enron.
Yes, we did.
WorldCom, Martha
WorldCom. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So then I got the bright idea that looking at how a really good set of ethics, including a commitment to the environment and social principles, could be the foundation for business success. Everybody always says, oh, business is the dog-eat-dog world. Business, you have to be cutthroat. You have to do whatever you can to undermine your competition. You have to be going for the short-term sale. I rejected all that. And I started doing some research, and not surprisingly, I discovered that the companies that are set up to do right in the world tend to perform better financially. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. First, you got customer loyalty. Depending on which study you look at, it takes anywhere between 5 and 10 times as much to bring in a new customer from scratch as it does an existing customer.
That's true.
If you screw people over, you don't get those existing customers coming back. Plus, you don't get their referrals. A referral is great because it brings you new business that you didn't have to chase and didn't have to pay for. So that was one reason why they work better. Another is that you don't have to worry about people stealing from the company or stealing from other companies. You don't have to worry about seeing your CEO in a perp shot on page 1 of the newspaper. And you have long-term stability ultimately. And if you're not chasing the next quarter's profits, but you're looking 5, 10, 20 years down the road at what kind of company you're trying to build, it does tend to work better. It may not greatest of lines, but it is a line that will climb. Mm-hmm. So for all those reasons, it makes a lot of sense. So from there, I did a book called Principled Profit that came out in 2003. Mm-hmm. Self-published it. And then I started thinking a few years after that it was time to update it. And about that time, a friend of mine at the time, who was a best-selling author for John Wiley and Sons, said, "Hey, how'd you like the name of my publisher at Wiley?" Like, yeah. So, and while Wiley was mulling over my proposal to redo that book, I decided that if they said no, I should ask Jay Levinson if he wanted to make it a guerrilla marketing book. And then what if they say yes, you could still ask Jay. So when they say yes, I asked Jay, and we did Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green.
Beautiful.
And that then in turn was replaced by the current book, Guerrilla Marketing to Heal the World, which has a lot more overt social change stuff in addition to the green. It talks about how to deal with hunger, poverty, racism, climate change, war, all those sorts of things as solvable business problems.
You know, I think there's something so important you say there, because that's what business is to me. It's solving problems. Mm-hmm. And some of the biggest problems in the world we have right now are global. They're not country centric. They're not and it's like some of the biggest problems we have, just poverty and hunger. We take care of those, and we take care of the soul of the world and heal that kind of planet. One of the things I want to know about from you is, when did business, because I feel like business is activism to me right now. And mm-hmm. I think meaning and money go together. Meaning and money go together. And I believe that's the future, is meaning and money. And what I mean by that is there's the regenerative economy coming out, where we are taking care of, people, planet, and then peace and profits after that. And I think what we think is we cannot do good and make money when we actually can do good and make money. What are 3 things that you maybe have, or insights that you could share with us that would help people understand the difference between polluting corporate monies and do good monies that help benefit the whole? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, it's a holistic approach, and
that's right.
And as coming up out of the political left, I have been hearing for my whole life how business is horrible and business is a rapacious capitalist thing that's going to swallow us all if we don't. But the reality is, business can be a force for social good, and there are some very, very famous examples of that, starting, of course, with the kings of social entrepreneurship from the 1990s, Ben and Jerry.
Yeah, I love Ben and Jerry.
Yeah, they really put a face, or 2 faces, on the idea that business can be a force for good. But there were plenty of other pioneers too. Yvon, I don't actually know how to pronounce his last name, Chouinard, something like that, the founder of Patagonia.
Oh, of course.
The only company I know that actually, without being forced to by a government agency, put an ad out saying, "Don't buy our product." because they said, if you don't need a new jacket, make do with the one you have. It's better for the earth. But if you do need one, we're happy to sell you a really nice one. And the headline was, "Don't buy this jacket." There are so many. A local example that's not particularly famous here in Massachusetts, we have a coffee roaster named Dean Sycon. His company is Dean's Beans.
Dean's Beans, cool.
He started in 1993, and every single coffee or cacao bean he has roasted in what is now 27 years has been organic and fair trade, or better than fair trade in terms of the way they're paying the farmers. He funnels a lot of the profits into village-led, village-designed, Dean Sycon funded development projects in the coffee villages where his cooperative sources coffee. And he's been a thorn in the side of the coffee industry when he doesn't feel like they're doing the right thing, which is frequent. Mm-hmm. So he's not afraid to criticize Starbucks or Green Mountain and say, well, you do all this advertising about your fair trade coffee, but it's X% of the total. When are you going to get to 100 instead of this little sliver? So another not particularly famous example, but I just love it because to me this totally embodies the glory of social entrepreneurship and attacking many fronts with a single solution, is a company called D-Light, D.Light, all lowercase. Now, D-Light sells little portable solar-powered LED lights in places where they've been using either nothing or kerosene. Let me tell you, Vicki, a little bit about kerosene lamps. Number one, they emit toxic fumes. Number two, there's a huge fire hazard. The number of people killed or maimed in kerosene fires is appalling.
Wow.
Number three, of course, it's a fossil fuel, so it's not good for the earth. Mm-hmm. And number four, if you are a poverty-stricken household in some developing country and you've got disposable income of $20 a month and you're spending $2 a month on kerosene fuel, it's a lot harder to dig yourself out of poverty. So they come in, they train locals on the ground to sell and service the lamps. So they're creating jobs. They provide a much better quality of light. So perhaps the parents can come in after a day working in the fields and start a little cottage craft industry because now they can see. Their kids can see to get better grades on their homework assignment.
Wow. Yeah.
Work for better jobs 10, 15 years down the line when they enter the workforce. And of course, that 10% of their income is suddenly disposable again.
Nice.
So they've just had a huge increase in their earning power. And this little $10 or $20 lamp is a ladder out of poverty.
That's like the most beautiful thing we talk about right now, that ladder out of poverty. I want to pop in here. A couple of people are saying stuff I think is important. I'm so in alignment with everything you're saying, Shel. I love you have the science and research behind what you're saying. I've always felt that would be the case. Thank you for that. And over here, Ben and Jerry Ice Cream was a front runner in being a socially conscious company. Yes, it was. And there is the D.Light. Here's where you can get one, solar LED lights, such as an amazing advancement over kerosene. And it's interesting because we're solving these problems that help. I know. I'm sorry, but somebody popped in. Did not know about kerosene. Wow. Yes. So it's interesting how we solve the problems. It's like we think that it takes millions and millions and bajillions of dollars, and it takes ingenuity. It takes really sitting with the problem long enough to figure out how you can do it better. I mean, that's just kind of what humanity does overall. And I think we're moving ourselves in that mindset towards those goals of being more local, being more, how many jobs you creating, those kind of things. And I think that's where the world is hopping on. Let's see. Scott says they had a business, by the way, good morning, Scott. They had a business model that had been emulated in many places across many fields. Yes, they did.
Yes, this is kind of social entrepreneurship is in industry after industry. It's really cool stuff. And you still need ingenuity. You need a lot of it, but you don't necessarily need big capital. There's a wonderful 2 books I'm going to recommend that I didn't write. One is called The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid by Prashalad. And it's all about how the very lowest strata economically in the world, people who have really nothing, can become a consumer class. And but you can't go in there with a $400 product if somebody's making $15 a week.
Yeah.
So you have to find ways to manufacture and sell and service at very low costs. And then the other one is called The Business Solution to Poverty by Pullman. Another really wonderful book. Those two together give a really good economic foundation in doing business that works, social entrepreneurship that works at when your customers have basically no money. There's also, since you are in Colorado, Vicki, I'll mention another wonderful example on the green side, and that's the Rocky Mountain Institute. I have been to the founder's house in Old Snowmass, Colorado, which is a suburb of Aspen.
Yeah.
And this is it's a big house. It's like 4,000 square feet. It was built in 1983 when we knew basically nothing compared to what we know now about green building. And it was essentially a net zero energy house built in 1983 in the cold Colorado Rockies, where the biggest industry is based on.
Well, at that time, it would have been beer.
I think skiing is bigger.
Skiing is bigger. You're right. You're right. Skiing is there. Beer is the product after the skiing.
So skiing is something that you need cold weather for. This house doesn't have a furnace, doesn't have an air conditioner, doesn't need a furnace, and he's growing bananas in there. And this house was built in 1983. If you think about all of those little big tract houses that are thrown up like around Westminster on the Boulder-Denver corridor, if you think all of those houses were built since then, none of them, as far as I know, were built with any energy plan in mind. If those had been built like Lovins' house in Old Snowmass, that alone would have made a significant dent in our need for foreign oil or our own nuclear power, which is another thing that we don't need and need to get away from.
It's interesting that you're mentioning this. I'm grinning right now because I live in an area that is probably the largest area in Colorado that is, off-grid homes that are, energy efficient, straw bale, southern facing, passive solar on purpose. And I did that on purpose. I think being in charge of your own well-being, that resiliency piece of it you have a lot less of a footprint. And our house is very, very actively green. Like we have barely any trash. We are the kind of people Patagonia is. I laugh at my partner because she has a sleeping bag that I tease her for. She bought it in 1986.
That's great.
And so she's been using that same bag since 1986 and it goes everywhere. She's like, I don't need a new one. It's the same. We get to the point where we think success is the ability to buy what we want, when we want, have it ever. We think success is the ability to have consumerism at stealth levels. Let's get that Lamborghini. Let's get that McMansion. Let's get that. And you know what I found out when we let go of all our houses in Boulder and Golden, we let all of the houses go. And we bought the place I'm currently living in right now as a mountain cabin where we were supposed to go up there on the weekends. And, I'd write books and it would be peaceful and quiet. And I have written books, that's true. But what happened was I found out that there's something about myself that really changed and transformed how I think about consumerism. And one is I realized I quite like cozy. I don't like McMansion. It's like, I don't even like that mentality. And I didn't realize I bought this place because I enjoy cozy. And I think our houses and our consumerism and the way we think about money and the way we think about people, we have this weird hierarchical thing that helps us be pretentious. We think there are people that are better than us, that are equal to us, or that there are less than us. And that's how we think. We think in this hierarchical thing when really everybody's equal. We're all humanity. But in order to feel good about ourselves, those that can buy more, be more, have more, they think they're better than other people. And we're killing our planet. We're killing our environment with these companies who keep providing more stuff than we ever need. And these small cottage industries that you're just talking about that make those lights that help people, really help people. That to me it's like your company can have a soul where it's loving and kind, or very profit driven.
Mhm.
And if you look at it, you don't really need as much money as you think you need. I mean, after a while, you're just like, here's money to give away. And that's great if you implement those. Let me ask you something. What do you think the horizon? Oh, you were going to say something, but I have a
I
question.
just want to grab one more show and tell here off my bookshelf.
And show and tell off the bookshelf. Thank you.
This is a book I put out back in 1985, The Penny Pinching Hedonist. And it's all about how to have fun cheaply. It's out of print in paperback, but available as an ebook. And it's all about how to live a really great life that doesn't require a large infusion of cash. We are on the grid, but we are in a house built in 1743, only the third family to have it. And
colonial
themes and built to last. And we did solarize it. We have a 1 kilowatt solar electricity, which is not quite enough, but it helps. And we had, until fairly recently, we had solar hot water. The system fried itself because I was not aware that it needed to have the fluid replaced. But now we have hot water and heat through a system generated by the cows on the farm I live on. So I'm coming to you on a cold New England day in a house heated by cow poop and restaurant waste.
Oh my God, that's amazing. First off, I love the colonial homes. I love Massachusetts. Like, if I didn't live here, I would live there. I love Massachusetts that much. But it has always been a forward-thinking state, and it has a lot of innovations like that. And I love the colonials as well. But being able to turn, cow manure into energy that's just brilliant. That's just thinking outside of the box, really.
Yeah, I think they generate enough electricity for 250 houses.
Oh my Lord, that's amazing. We have solar farms out on this side that for our co-op, but I think all exceptional energy like that, all of it is important for us to look at for solutions. Scott, nice to see you again. We've been exampled into believing that and living that buying new is success. It's so true. We have, and not needing to buy new is the new success. And yes, that penny pitcher book, put that up there because I want it. I want the ebook. Because that title was made for Robin right there. I'm sorry, guys. That's who really pinches the penny in our house, and she does a great job of it. Thank you for that. It certainly fits in with this new reset, this new greener deal. Yes.
And I never marketed it as a green book, but I wrote it with that in mind, that I was going to help people lower their consumption.
That to me is such a big, important thing. And I agree, MJ, you two should meet actually. You guys are brilliant together, but when is enough enough? I mean, the rich people disease, I get it. And to me, I don't know how to say this, but it is so enriching and so joy bringing to be able to have your business make a difference in the community, make a difference in the world. I got to tell you, Shel, one of the most empowering things that has ever happened to me as an entrepreneur, one of my businesses that we had was an ice cream store, and a very good friend of mine purchased this building, and we were trying to figure out what to do with it. And there were 6 people, but it was really 3 couples. There was 3 couples that had bought this business, and all 3 of the couples had a home business outside of the business we just bought or founded. And we all dug in and cleaned it up and got it all shaped, rebuilt it. And it was for a small town. They had no place where a family could go to get something. So we made it an ice cream store. And what ended up happening was nobody ever took any profits from the store as a paycheck. We all put it either back into the community. We added to services. We added to the building. We added everything. All the money went out to the community. And that shifted my mindset of what a business could really absolutely do. Kids programs, seniors, fire departments, we gave to every kind of charity there was, and everybody got some of it. And I realized at that point, That's why business is so important to do. And it's the type of business. Is it conscious business? And what's it going to do, or what's it going to be? And I want to know, what are 3 things that make a business conscious? Give me some tips for people who are like, how can you make your business a conscious business?
Okay. Well, you've got to be environmentally aware. You've got to be socially aware of your outside impact. And I think you've got to be aware of your own workforce and your own community and what they need. And I'll just say, well, I think it's really admirable that you were able to donate 100% of the profits in your ice cream store. I don't want to discourage people who actually need to live on what they're earning as
you got to make money.
Entrepreneurship business. There are plenty of models for that. For every Paul Newman who gives it all away, there are many more who are having a viable, profitable business that puts substantial amounts of money and resources into the community, but also pays a decent income to the people who work for it. And there's some, again, wonderful models for this. I think about Grayston Bakery in Yonkers, New York, which is the brownie supplier for Ben & Jerry's and for some upscale Tier 1 hotels. And they have the best hiring policy of any company I've ever come across. And here is what it is. They're located in Yonkers, which is a very urban, very low income community, literally bordering New York City. You can walk to it from the Bronx. And their employment policy is your name goes on a list, and then they take, as they get a new job opening, they take the top person on the list and say, here's a job if you still want it. Doesn't matter if they're an ex-addict, ex-felon, single mom, mental health issues, whatever it is. They don't just give them the job, though. They give them the training to make that job work. So what happens is after a year or two, this formerly unemployable person now can put together a very decent resume, has gotten training, is likely to have gotten some promotions, may not ever need a resume because they love it where they work, and making a difference, obviously, in the wider community of Yonkers because these people who work there are spending money in that community, and on and on it goes. And this is, again, those multiple problems, one solution. I love those things.
Yes, it is. That's the point of what we learn together when we begin to work together. And so I think traditional business schools are traditional mainstream business principles are beginning to change in a big way. I think we're seeing more of the future right now, and I think it's going to be unfolding because we have issues that we haven't had before, and or things that are happening that the pandemic is kind of forcing. We're losing a lot of local businesses, restaurants, things like that. What part do you think online business is going to play? I mean, do you have some kind of maybe a futuristic view of how business is going to play with the online thing? Are we still going to see global business that way, where we have China making products that get shipped? How do we see online business moving forward? Do you have any idea of that?
How long do we have? The short capsule version is yes. I think that a lot of local businesses which may never have been online and were forced to go online in the last several months have discovered that there's a lot of advantages to being there. And the nice thing is now that every local business that's still functioning has an online presence, I think it's beginning to dilute the impact of the Amazons and Walmarts and all these huge companies that have forced local businesses to close. Now, all of a sudden, the local businesses have a way of maintaining parity. I can order a book from my local bookstore, the Odyssey in South Hadley, Mass, online and go and pick it up. Or I could order it from your online local superstore, the Tattered Cover, or in Portland, Powell's, and it'll be on my door in 2 days or so. And generally, I don't need a book to be here any faster than that. And, so what the flip side of the consolidation and the big companies pushing out the little people is the little people finding markets that are much bigger than what they had before. Some little artisan in, let's just say, northern Minnesota. Let's say, Ojibwe tribeswoman who's making beaded craft work in the traditional way. She doesn't have to just sell to the Boundary Waters, or she doesn't even have to sell just to the state of Minnesota and the Twin Cities. She can sell to a customer in Brazil now, or she can sell to a customer in Taos,
nice.
wherever it is. So that's one thing that's changed. I've started to query publishers on a book called Leveraging the Great Pivot. And it's about the opportunity that the pandemic has provided for making deep and long-lasting social change in area after area. I'm really excited about this. And hopefully some publisher will make me an offer that is workable, and I'll start writing the book. But I'm going to be interviewing people like Van Jones, who was Obama's energy czar, and Mayora Carter from Sustainable South Bronx, doing amazing work there. I had covered a speech from one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. I would be contacting her. People like Joel McCower, who founded greenbiz.com. These are some of the people that I want to interview for this book. And also, obviously, activists, because activists are the ones who are going to hold our feet to the fire and say, this is not enough, just as they've been doing around racial justice since May. And there's been a racial justice movement in this country for at least 150 years, pre-Civil War, probably much longer than that. I know the Quakers chose anti-slavery as something to do something about around the 1750s or 1760s.
Wow.
So maybe that far as a movement, maybe that wasn't really a movement yet. But we live in a time where everything is changing. Thank you, Karen. Karen loves the title.
I know. I was thinking, I want to read it too, because I'm already waiting. You write it, I'll read it.
Yeah, well, I think there is a market for that. I don't know how many people are on this call right now, but if several of them are popping up and saying, oh, what a great idea, that's very encouraging to me.
It is.
And yeah. I am really, as I said, this idea of braiding together social change in business is something that I've been playing with for about a decade now. And it's also very, very exciting.
Yeah, there's so much change happening right now. Scott says the big guys explore and build out the roadways. Then all else can follow behind, building out their own projects using the new infrastructure. Yes, I love a lot of the new stuff that's coming in. And, I love the opportunity we have to make changes in how we do things. But more than that, I love the shift in mindset. And the reason I love the shift in mindset is because it's less stressful. It's less, running as fast as you can for unnecessary things for somebody else so that they can achieve whatever their goals are. It's more centered around maybe a difference that you want to make in the world versus, trying to get a job or find a job that doesn't even give you a sense of meaning, or that you hate and you do anyway because you want to feed your family. I know that for me, what I had in my mind is a hobby farm, which, grew its own food and had something local, which we do. And I had it a little bigger. We plant orchards and things like that with business online or business at home. And like you, I can tell you books have been a godsend for me. I absolutely am so thankful for them. But there's a point where this kind of switch, the most important things about conscious business is the conscious part of it, and living consciously, not just in a way where you're not harming the earth, but you're not harming you. Mm-hmm. You're not getting up at 4:30 in the morning to catch that 5:30 train so you can go 2 hours into another state, so you can work there and go 2 hours back home on that train every single day. There's part of your well-being and your liberty and freedom that come back from this. This isn't just about trying to make the earth greener. It's trying to make your life more livable in a healthier way.
Yep. And I love that. And I work at home, and I love my 50-foot commute.
Me too.
And
I'm like, the coffee pot is there and I'm here.
As much vacation time as I can afford. That normally I take at least 2 big trips a year. This year, of course, is different. But the best thing that I know about mindset was said by Muhammad Ali, and I loved it so much that I stuck it in the book, and I also made it the core of my TEDx talk. And I'll just read it here.
Love it.
Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing.
That's right. That's beautiful. Karen always has this Audrey Hepburn quote of even if you look at I'm impossible, it says I'm possible in there. And this is a time where there's big possibilities to free yourself and be able to have a different look at businesses. What do you think, what type of businesses other than, I think we talked about, micro businesses, and we've talked about cottage industries that we can do. What other businesses do you think will be popular in the future that people may want to look at that will help conscious business rise for them as well?
I think you'll see a lot of innovation around housing, around transportation, around healthcare, all of the key issues. And what will happen is some of these companies will start small and get much, much bigger. It's important to note also, Vicki, that pretty much every major corporation is looking at these issues. They may not look at it from the same lens that a progressive activist would, but they all have, if not sustainability departments, they have sustainability coordinators. A couple of years ago, I went to the Responsible Business Summit. The speakers were from companies like Coca-Cola, Ford Motor Company, Nestle, which is not a name that some of us who were activists in the 70s associate with social consciousness.
Yeah.
Think about a company like Unilever. Unilever is an enormous
They have all the ice cream
corporation. They own dozens and dozens of brands around the world. They own Ben & Jerry's. They own Dove. They own
Haagen-Dazs.
They do?
I thought they did. I thought they bought Haagen-Dazs before Ben & Jerry's.
I don't. Last time I was by first Pillsbury and then Kraft. But
you're right. I think they're owned by Kraft.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, another big, huge consumer goods conglomerate.
Yes, another one.
Unilever decided to go for B Corp certification. B Corp is an alternative business structure that allows you to count other things besides short-term profit as shareholder goals.
Nice.
So it's very important. There are now a few thousand of them. And as Unilever goes through the process, it's proving that like one of the probably 50 biggest companies in the world can do this with all its many moving parts. And I think this is something actually that buying Ben & Jerry's helped them to do, because Ben & Jerry's was one of the very first companies to go B Corp. Quote. Thank you, Karen. Nothing is impossible. The world itself says, I'm possible. The word itself, sorry.
I love this here. Thank you very much. Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. God, I love that. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. Thank you, Karen.
And that quote inspired me so much that I named my TEDx talk "Impossible is a Dare."
Love it. Love it. So, throw that TED talk in there because I want to be able to click on it later and look at it, please.
Karen has my email with my SIG. It's in there.
No, when I do that, that Karen knows I'm talking to her. Thank you for that. I think what's interesting about this, that's very important that you just said, listen, all you people who hate big companies right now, because he just said they were working on these problems too. And, I want to thank you for saying that, because having faith that maybe they'll steer their way forward, these big companies that are working on these problems as well, lets us know, especially, because Nestle is vilified for how much pollution it's putting out right now. It's very vilified. And if you ask me if Nestle was doing good in the world, I'd be like, well, I'm not sure what they're doing. It's nice to hear that these companies are actually tackling these problems right now and tackling some of the things that they can be doing. But here's the most important thing. How are you tackling these things in your future? How are you handling these new ways that we do business? And I mean you, the listener, you at home. This is a, full participation situation we have in this world. And if we don't change our mindset, you will still be trapped in what Scott said earlier, about being, hypnotized into being a consumer. We want to become conscious about what we need, how much we're using, what we're doing to make a living, how is it benefiting people. And I think where you spend your dollar is the most important thing that says your vote, where the consumer spends their dollar. So Nestle owns Haagen-Dazs. Thank you very much. It wasn't Kraft, it was actually Nestle's. Thank you for looking that up, Scott, you genius, you. But let me ask you, how can people find a list of companies that are, or maybe not a list, but a suggestion of a few companies where your dollar is spent well? When you go spend $1 here, it's fair trade, or a percentage goes to something. How do people find these brands or these lists of companies that do that?
Well, certifications do matter, at least certifications that are third-party, independently issued, not issued by the company themselves or someone in their pay. One such certification is Green America. I was actually the very first business to get Green America Gold certification, and we had to co-invent the process of how that was going to work for a solopreneur consulting company, because they had much bigger frames of reference of who they thought would be applying for it. And so we worked that out together. Another is
congratulations. That's big.
Yeah, this was already, I think that was about 8 years ago now.
Nice.
B Corp, that's another good one. If you're buying food, look for the fair trade label or one or several. Look for organic certification. And organic, unlike natural, organic certification actually means something. And among other things, it means no GMO. And that's one thing. Trump had threatened to get rid of that, but I don't think he succeeded. I think it still has teeth. If you see something certified natural, that means nothing whatsoever. Presumably, it means it wasn't made out of
good copywriting.
Yeah, but it's one big company that I want to talk about because it always shocks people. It's a company that I do not think of as socially responsible in a lot of areas, but on the environment, they're really, really good. And the reason they're really, really good is because they figured out that it both makes them and saves them enormous amounts of money. Got a guess, Ricky?
I was like, Walmart?
Walmart. You got it.
Oh my Lord. That just blows me away.
Walmart sells more organic food as a dollar volume than Whole Foods.
Wow.
And the amazing
that surprises me.
They sell it to people who ain't never going to go to Whole Foods in their lives. They sell it to, working class white people in rural areas, not the typical Whole Foods consumer at all. People who are very price conscious, not the typical Whole Foods consumer. And, this was a real who would have thunk it discovery for me.
You're having that now.
I would prefer not to shop at Walmart because of their store siting, their labor policies, and a whole lot of other stuff. But I really respect that they've brought green products and services to that base of people who thought they didn't need them. And it boggles my mind. And I can truthfully say that the only time I've ever actually bought anything in a Walmart was that when I was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, heading into the desert, was the only place I could find to buy a couple of gallons of water. So I spent $1 at Walmart in my life.
Wow. And, it's interesting because I thought, Walmart's pretty progressive, in my opinion, in that they've already got blockchain installed so that their food waste can be smaller. And they put the blockchain in So that if like a farm came and they had, melons that were bad, instead of throwing all the melons out, what they do is they went ahead and they blockchain it. They can track exactly what farm it came from, so they don't have to waste all that food. They can just damage, that one.
Yeah,
It.
they've always been really good at technology and logistics. They always know exactly where anything is in the supply chain. It was not a huge surprise to me that after Hurricane Katrina, it was Walmart that was going out there with convoys filled with emergency food, because the Bush administration was not able to do that, and they just will do it.
Yeah, our government is always very slow to act. Regardless, I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican in there. We're just slow to act as anything. And I think there's a lot faster. And a lot of times we vilify these corporations when they are actually trying to help move in a direction that is beneficial for us. And sometimes, not. And I think we get inaccurate press on both sides. Learned a lot from you. I'm really stumped that Walmart, more organic food than Whole Foods. Wow, that just blows me away. I wouldn't have thought that.
But it was a totally profit-driven decision. They saw a market that wasn't being tapped. They tapped it. They came in with low-priced organics, and people bought them. A lot of people bought them. They sell a huge number of low-wattage light bulbs, LEDs and CFLs. And they have cut their own operating costs enormously by looking at where can we make our carbon footprint less and our fuel bill less.
Well, whatever works at this point. To me, that's whatever works.
And the other thing is that they have far more leverage over the supply chain. When Walmart says, if you have 16 layers of packaging in this box, it's not going on our shelves. Then those companies change because they want that account. When I say, you really could get by with 2 layers of packaging, why do you need 16? Now you're some liberal Northeastern elitist. What do we want to listen to you for? But they'll listen to their largest customer.
That's right. That's I see that. I see that as a real benefit. It's nice to have a good view of what's happening in corporations right there. And I think all the listeners now, it's like we have to stop vilifying things and become innovative thinkers with them. It's definitely all about ingenuity and looking at how to do that better.
We smaller businesses can find ways to partner with them. It's important to remember that Microsoft was a really tiny business until they partnered with IBM and got IBM to allow them to provide the operating software for the original PCs. Before that, they were a nothing little consulting company in Seattle, and they became one of the biggest IT companies in the world. But I am very much, when I do my own shopping, I shop at local small independent stores, or maybe not so local, small independent stores and crafters, as much as I can. I do very, very little shopping from the corporate giants.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about that too, especially right now. Any small business that we can support, we do that right now. It's functional and necessary. I know around Facebook right now, there is a meme kind of thing that's going a little more viral about buying from local businesses and people. If you have a small local business, put a link in here and, everybody buy from these shops and things like that. We're trying to hold those up right now. And I just think the future is going to be a lot more innovative. And I think blockchain is going to help a lot.
Blockchain will help. Like store-specific script can help. You can sell your customer $25 worth of script that they can only redeem at your store for $20. So the customer has just saved 20%, and you have a guaranteed infusion of cash, and that 20% is a marketing cost to you that you can absorb. And you also get to keep the money if they never get around to buying from you, but we hope they do. So that's certainly not something I invented. There's a whole local currency movement out there, which I used to be part of the local one here that didn't make it. But I understand from watching some of the ones that came later why we didn't make it, and what if I'm ever in that situation again. The one big change that I would do is to make it redeemable again for U.S. currency at a slightly discounted rate, because what was happening is that there were a few very, very popular merchants who were accumulating enormous amounts of the local currency and had nowhere to spend it. So by not giving them a safety valve, we lost the whole deal.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know we started, or there was an attempt to start one here, and it just never even got off the ground. And it died, but I'm not even sure why. I just know that for me, I've been a big proponent for small business for years. And I mean, in any way that you can see a small business grow and take in locally. And I also like, Karen just popped up. I like CSAs. Me too. We had that here, and those are fantastic. I really love
the concept. You pay a fee. Like what we do is we pay at the beginning of the season a couple $100, and then from late May or early June all the way through the end of October, we are going every week to the farm, which happens to be only 3 miles from my house. And we're coming back with a lot of fresh produce. And there are CSEs for meat or for cheese or for craft items or other wine, whatever. But anyway, you're paying directly to the farmer. The farmer knows they're going to get that money up front at the beginning of the season when they need it, when they're buying their seeds, when they're buying their organic fertilizer. Around here, pretty much all the CSAs are organic, which is really nice. And you're buying local. Local food is not only better for the carbon cycle and for taste, but it's also better for nutrition because the products don't degrade as long before they are on your own refrigerator shelf.
That's true. That's very true. And I was on book tour in 2008 before the crash happened. And I was in Massachusetts, and there was a friend of mine who I had met in Concord, who knew one of these CSA farms. And I got to tour the whole farm and see how everything is done. Number one thing I like about Massachusetts, those people know farming, and as good as Vermont, and the apple orchards, the stuff there is miraculous. Massachusetts is an amazing state, and it's got her CSA, the CSA they had, it was the fall, it was kind of apple season. And I got to see all the beds that were cleared and how they did it in the boxes. And I thought, now this is a business. This is a true local business. But some places they delivered to restaurants as well. Mm-hmm. And they had an area where they kind of put herbs and stuff in a bag so they were fresh to the restaurant. And there was a way that the business was kind of year round, but it was micro in the winter and then macro in the summer. But, you know, densely populated area full of people, you can get those CSAs up and running as businesses, and it is literally farm to table. And 3 miles from your house, that's definitely the easiest way.
Yeah, between that and our own organic garden, we eat really, really well here.
Yeah, I love growing my own food, and I'd like to say, you know, my partner built a lot of beds for us, etc. And this season was a bumper crop of food. I mean, just, wow, it was just a bumper crop of food. And between how we process food right now, I think that's the number one thing that is the most important thing going up. Our food supply chains have been very disrupted this year with the pandemic. Last year with the weather, and moving forward, we have the lowest backup of food we've ever had, I think, since like it was biblical or something like that. It's really the granary is really empty, and there's a lot of crop loss in other countries. China, we had a lot of crop last year, etc. So I think the number one most important thing we can do is grow our own food and have that be part of growing your own food is, to me, one of the most patriotic things you can do. It is setting yourself free in ways that you can't even imagine right now. If you've never had a garden or anything else, if you're looking at activism, the first piece of activism would be grow a garden.
But grow a garden the right way. It should be organic, or even biodynamic, if you have access to that toolkit. It should be in harmony with the land. One of the big issues we have in this country, you talk about the food shortage of stored food, that's probably directly related to the poor condition of industrially farmed soil over several decades losing its fertility.
Agreed.
So it's really, your food choices make a huge difference. Your local economy is something you should be supporting with your food dollars. If you're in Colorado, I'm in Massachusetts, you've tasted a Massachusetts apple. It's a marvelous apple, but if you ship it to California, it won't be so marvelous by the time it gets there.
Agreed.
Yeah. We have the best apples anywhere. I've got a bag full of Howans in the fridge.
That is the one thing I've learned. And actually, I was very fortunate in the 2008 tour. I was in Littleton, and there is part of now I grew up in California. That's where I was born. So Johnny Appleseed was actually a story. It wasn't anything real or anything else. And I bit into an original Johnny Appleseed apple, and it was quite woody on the inside. I was like, I can't get my teeth out of it, but it was back in 2008, and this orchard had been really wild. But there's so much to learn about activism, and activism isn't necessarily, and I want to be very clear here, activism is nonviolent. So when we hear on the news, these activists blew out these doors and banged up that's not activism. That's
it's also
violent.
only the tiniest percentage of the movement, and often it turns out to be right-wing provocateurs. Smart people do not do violence or property destruction in the course of their protests. They don't work as well. Actually, there's some really interesting studies by Erica Chenoweth and George Lakey and Stephen Zunis and a lot of other people that show that nonviolent strategies can actually overturn coups, can get rid of governments that are doing bad things to their people at a much higher rate than violent ones. And then my own corollary to that is that they're much more likely to maintain a government that you're happy with. Because if they come to power by violence, they're going to see violence as a way of maintaining power. And that gets very ugly very fast. You saw it in places like Zimbabwe after their revolution.
And whilst I want to be careful here when I say this, because I don't think there is, I think both parties are corrupt. I'm an independent. I've been an independent as well. And, Democrats and the Republicans, I'm like, there are people who are thoughtful and mindful and aware, and there are people who are not. And those people who assume that violence is the way, whether you're progressive or you're, right wing, whatever you are, whether you're conservative or progressive, if you think violence the way, then it's ignorance. It's not a party. Mm-hmm. And for me, that type of ignorance, there's just protesters who do not value the activism that is nonviolence, that is, Gandhi freed an entire country that way. But what I want to make sure we know is that there are times that both parties, I don't care who you are, you're progressive in a way and you're conservative in a way. And right now, if we take a look at those people that are being conservative and looking at taking care of the earth and regenerating the economy, and they're out there trying to make a difference in the world, and they're out there really beating the path, I like to call them entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And I think entrepreneurship is a political party, but it's the party of action. It's the party that's like, you guys argue over here, I'm going to go build this. You guys argue over here, I'm going to go do this. And I am very proud of some of the work that these entrepreneurs like you and me have done. I mean, okay, you're the first consulting firm that has been, is now gold. And I look at those things, the 9 books you've written. Okay, I've written 10. Plenty of books, 10 now. The 10 books you've written, I've written plenty of books. I know what work goes into doing that. And those people that are the doers, those people that are out there are doing it for humanity. They're not doing it for a party. They're like, if you're conscious business, you are thinking about, how do I make things better for everyone? Yeah, how do I make things better? How do I share my message that way?
Yeah, and speaking of action and sharing messages, I do want to point out that if anybody listening would like a sampler from Guerrilla Marketing to Heal the World, or a lot of other very cool stuff that would take me too long to go through the list here, visit goingbeyondsustainability.com/freebies.
What if they want to work with you? What if they say, I need a consulting appointment with this guy and talk about my business? How can they get a hold of you there?
Also, goingbeyondsustainability.com, you will see an option for a contact form. I'll throw my email and phone into the chat here.
Yeah, thank you. Email and phone into the chat.
I've got this elevated and it's hard to type.
So I think also, if you are not friends with Mira Rubin, if you don't know who
I know Mira, yes.
Great.
I've been on
you
her
two
show.
need to meet. She's fabulous.
She is great.
Yeah, she is.
She and I met at a Ken MacArthur event.
Oh, yeah, of course. That makes sense. Violence solves nothing. Thank you, Robin. That is so absolutely true. And so right now,
it showed up as private chat. How do I?
That's okay. I'm going to take care of that for you right now, that private chat right there. So if you want a consultation, if your business right now is looking at how it can be more of an activist type business, or how you can go ahead and be, in contact with him and talk about what you can do
and
to be more green.
Minutes for free also, if you just to sound out about what you had in mind and whether it makes sense, whether I can help you. I'm happy to do that.
So there we go. If you want to get a hold of Shel and talk about the greenandprofitable.com, there's his phone number right there. He's going to do 15 minutes for free. Thank you. That is fantastic. That's very kind of you. And if it's time to pivot your business, this is the guy with the experience. This is a guy who wrote the book with heart and soul, who will help you go ahead. And thank you for this piece over here. You'll be able to listen to him and get some advice as to what you can do or what will make it better. I love this conversation. I want to let you know that I have been the kind of person that has been pushing conscious business for as long as I can remember. I'm, doing these things. But I think business is the most liberating, the most empowering, the most patriotic thing we can do is have a conscious business right now. It is the way forward. You can bootstrap them. You can start them at your home. There's so many things you can do. I'm so honored that you were with us today, Shel. It has been a rock my world conversation. I really love what you shared with us today.
Thank you. And I loved being your guest. You asked great questions. You have a lovely perspective. Yeah, we could do it again sometime.
We are going to do that again sometime, as a matter of fact, Shel. Listen, if you're out there, thank you for joining us on all the channels. There is going to be the hashtag replay. If you're watching this after this show, which I know hundreds of you do me a favor and put hashtag replay in below. And do me a favor, get that book. We put the books over there. I think 3 or 4 of them are already sold in this particular show. His latest book, hold it up for me, please. It is a guerrilla marketing to heal the world. I mean, it's to heal the world. You can go get your copy right now. We have it in the link. Shel, thank you for being on the Coffee Break Show.
By the way, up here is Jack Canfield, and on the back cover is Seth Godin with quotes about.
Oh, I love that. Both of them, Seth and Shel. Shel, I love Seth. He's really great. And Jack, of course. Everybody loves Jack Canfield. All right. That's been the Coffee Break Show today. I know tomorrow you'll be buzzing and talking about this, but I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. And you know what? Peace out. Go be an activist. All right. See you guys later. Really, go plant a garden.